places like that.
I was watching this program on buffalo last night, and they were talking about how the buffalo were decimated and how they were shipping these truckloads or trains, train carriages filled with buffalo meat back to the East Coast. Buffalo meat became high in demand, and then buffalo hides were high in demand, and they were showing in this thing that I was watching stacks of skins, just stacks of skins and of skulls, and you just look at it like, what the fuck? How did you do this? How did you guys not think that this was a terrible idea? Look at that. Look at those stacks of skulls. There's a stacks that go all the way up to the top of that railroad cart. I mean, that's fucking bananas. Stacks of skins. Look at these skins. I mean, they were just wiping out hundreds of thousands of them. Like, how many did they wipe out a year? Because you got to assume, like, that stuff has probably recently come off the animal.
That says it's 40,000 buffalo hides right there.
Oh, my God. It's so crazy what they did. I got to get this guy on the podcast. His name is Dan Flores, and I found out about him from Steve Rinella, and he has a very interesting hypothesis. He's a scientist. His take on what happened with the buffalo is essentially, I might butcher this, but that when the first Europeans came to North America, they didn't find evidence of buffalo. They talked about everything else. They talked about bear. They talked about deer. They talked about elk. They talked about all these different animals that we know exist here, but they didn't really talk about buffalo. And he believes that with the sheer numbers of buffalo that existed 100 years later, it seems highly improbable that they wouldn't talk about them. And his take is that what happened was, when Europeans started showing up in America, they brought with them a lot of diseases. And those diseases that they gave these people, like, first of all, like, there's a common myth, apparently, that they gave them syphilis in the form of scabs in blankets, that they put scabs in blankets and gave them to the Native Americans. As far as I know, that's not true. Not only that, they didn't know about bacteria then. They didn't know that's how it was spread. They didn't know that you would give someone a scab and that the actual tissue from the scab would cause the disease. The knowledge of, like, how diseases were spread was not that sophisticated back then, as far as what I read. But what he's saying is that when the Europeans came here and they introduced these new diseases that they had, that the natives didn't have any immune systems for, it fucking devastated the population. And he said that is responsible for as many deaths as anything else to the Native Americans that lived here. They just got fucking completely wiped out by European diseases. When that happened, the Native Americans were responsible for keeping the buffalo populations in check and had been doing so pretty efficiently ever since that the horse was brought to in North America. Because before the Europeans came here, Native Americans didn't have horses. They weren't on horses. So the horses that, we depict the Wild West, the Native Americans ride around the horse, that's how they've always been. No, they were always like really nomadic people that live in Brazil or something like that, in the rainforest, or Ecuador or something like that. They weren't on horses. So they got the horses from the North Americans, but they also got the diseases. And while they had the horses, they were on the way to, in his words, extirpating the buffalo from their domain, which means a local extinction. So they were already doing such an efficient job of killing the buffalo from horses, because they'd run up on horses and just fucking arrow the shit out of these buffalo. And they were ruthlessly effective because they were on a horse. So they could get that horse right up with the buffalo, because a buffalo's full clip is about 40 miles an hour. But a horse can run about 50, 60, and especially like a really strong horse. So these guys would just run up on these fucking herds of buffalo and blast them with arrows and kill them. And then they got guns. And once they got guns, good googly moogly, between horses and rifles, I mean, they were fucking these buffalo up. So what happened was they got almost wiped out, and the buffalo came back strong. So when they saw these millions of buffalo out on these prairies, that was an overabundance. That was a rare cycle in time that corresponded with the death of the Native Americans. And this is his paper that he wrote. Buffalo Ecology, I think, something Buffalo Ecology. His name is Dan Flores. See if we can find it. I think it's one of those university papers, though, that you probably have to have some sort of a membership, and it's like one of those things that kid got in trouble for releasing for free. Remember that kid that wound up killing himself?
Yeah.
There's a PDF that you can get.
Oh, there's a PDF.
Yeah,
What does it say?
It's 22 pages.
Bison ecology and bison diplomacy. That's it. The Southern Plains from 1800 to 1850. Really, really interesting stuff. Because, we're finding out more and more about the history of this country, obviously, because we still have Columbus Day. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that we still have a day named after a guy who didn't even get here. He landed in the West Indies, right? Isn't that where he landed? The Bahamas or some shit?
What other things do you think are on the way out? Columbus Day is definitely on the way out.
It should have been out a long time ago.
Right?
He's a murderer.
What else?
Columbus is a mass murderer. If you go to there was a missionary or someone that was there at the time of Columbus that detailed the horrors of what they did to the Native American people that they found, to try to get these people to give them gold. I mean, the fucking horrors. They would cut off body parts and send these people out. They would cut their arms off if they didn't bring back a certain amount of weight in gold. They would smash babies on the rocks. They would take their children from them and smash them in the rocks. We're talking about boats filled with serial killers. And we have a holiday where kids get off school for a guy who ran a boat of serial killers that came across the ocean and just laid waste to everybody in front of him.
I'm from a city that's named after him, Columbus. We even have his boat, like a recreation of his boat in Columbus, Ohio.
It's fucking crazy, man. Where's that lighter, brother?
He's got it over there.